In this video, we're going to talk about the Alpha Strike. Now, the Alpha Strike is the first pillar of the 4 pillars of army design. You need to make sure that your Alpha Strike is strong enough that when you hit your opponent, you can severely limit their ability to do something. But the question is, how do you build an Alpha Strike and what should you be targeting? So first of all, let's talk about what you want to be building for your own Alpha Strike. I think a good example of an Alpha Strike, especially with like Space Marines in 9th edition right now, would be 2 squads of 5 Eradicators. So let's look at what the Eradicators can do. The Eradicators have a 30-inch Strength 8 melter weapon that is an assault weapon, so they can move and fire. Yeah. And if they fire at the same target, they can fire twice, which means 5 models for 225 points will fire twice, which there's almost nothing in the game that has 10 Strength 8 shots for 225 points. Right, that's devastating.
I don't want that.
Now, that's going to do a lot of damage, but based on probability, we know it's not guaranteed to kill something. You might damage a vehicle, you might knock it to within 1 or 2 wounds, but it could still live. If we want to guarantee to kill that thing, we add a second squad of Eradicators. Now, what's cool about this, a couple of Eradicators will give me some really cool options. Eradicator squad number 1 can shoot and maybe kill a Rhino or a Land Raider or whatever it is that I'm going to target. If I don't kill it, I can either finish it off with the other squad of Eradicators or finish it off with some other shots from the rest of my army, and then the Eradicators can shoot something else, right? So that is a great example of why I would want 2 squads of Eradicators. I can either definitely kill one threat, or I can pick and choose. Now, the firepower from the Eradicators is strong enough to kill a knight. If your opponent's playing knights, depending on the size of battle, they've probably only got 3 big knights, and then maybe some small stuff. With 2 squads of Eradicators, I can definitely kill 1 knight mathematically, maybe even 2 with a bit of luck and some extra firepower. But 1 knight is a third of my opponent's army. They are not going to recover from that kind of firepower. It's strong. But the Eradicators are not the only Alpha Strike. There are so many different Alpha Strikes. Every army has some kind of equivalent of the Alpha Strike. So we can look at Necrons, for example, and we can talk about the Destroyers. The firepower from the Destroyers is so heavy that it's going to wipe out most things. So once again, I could have 3 regular destroyers, 3 heavy destroyers, which is like Locust destroyers and the destroyers. And the firepower from those is going to be so much. Once again, 400 points will get you, I think it gets you like 8 of them or 7 of them or something, but it's enough firepower to once again take down a couple of big vehicles or a very key unit of your opponents. So when I'm building out my army, so we can think about some others as well. Like, so for example, my Death Guard army, my Alpha Strike relies on a pair of Plague Burst crawlers with entropy cannons, which once again is a ton of Strength 8 shots. You're going to find that your Alpha Strike is almost always going to either be a lot of mortal wounds or it's going to be Strength 8 with AP of -3 or higher. So we could do Hellblasters and do the same thing. A squad of Hellblasters standing next to a captain that lets you reroll 1s, again, is going to be a lot of firepower that's going to take things down. Now, don't misunderstand the importance of an Alpha Strike in terms of armor penetration, because sometimes your opponent's going to have invulnerable saves. And an invulnerable save will, a very high invulnerable save will be a 2-up regular save and a 4-up invulnerable save, which means actually the most effective armor penetration is -2. And a lot of people get this wrong. They'll be like, I want -5 armor penetration. But it's not going to help you against invulnerable saves. Against demons, they're going to have a 5-up invulnerable save no matter what. So an AP of -2 is actually the most effective, which in many ways makes missile launchers the #1 gun for alpha striking. And I'm going to show you why. You have 2 options to fire a missile launcher. You have a Strength 8 crack shot with an AP of -2, which is the most effective to get you to an invulnerable save. Okay. Right? It will take a 3-up save to a 5-up, or it will take a 2-up save to a 4-up, which would be the invulnerable save. It does D6 wounds. So that's a lot of wounds at the minimum AP. Missile launchers are some of the cheapest guns, heavy weapons in the game as well. Yeah. But we can also change it up because we can add a frag missile into it instead, which will do D6 strength 4 shots. So suddenly all my missiles can be lots and lots of shots instead. Yeah. So actually a really powerful opening Alpha Strike can be done with a bunch of missile launchers in Devastator squads or Havoc squads if you're Chaos. Along those lines, I know you know this, your favorite Alpha Strike is with the chain cannons.
Absolutely.
So give an example of what you can do with that.
Yeah, so I love my chain cannons, and that's kind of the power of numbers. We mentioned high power, but this is shot output. So I'll get a Havoc squad, I'll load it up with 4 Reaper chain cannons, and that's 32 shots, and just direct them all into something, and There's some buffs you can do as well. You can, cast prescience on them so they're hitting on 2s. With the Demon Prince nearby, they're re-rolling 1s.
And what's cool about that is that Demon Prince is the thing that gives them prescience.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The Demon Prince will let them reroll 1s and +1 to hit. So 32 shots, hitting on 2s, rolling 1s, that's 30 hits realistically.
Yeah.
Now they're at a strength of 5, which is going to wound a lot of things in the game, but you add Veterans of the Long War for +1 to wound, and suddenly you're going to even wound toughness 8 on a 4-up, which is the same as if these were strength 8 guns. 32 shots at strength 8 effectively is insane. Then you add Endless Cacophony, they're firing twice, 64 shots. Once again, most things in the game are going to get wrecked by that.
Yeah, so another thing I wanted to mention was, you mentioned taking out the Knight, and something I learned how to do really well with these chain cannons is directing all the fire into a single target, knowing and evaluating what is the point cost of this target that I'm going after, and do I want to eliminate that?
Yeah, actually, that's a really key thing. So James, with his chain cannons, has the ability to completely kill one thing. And in a most recent game, he was firing everything into a Termite, which has a much lower points cost than Mortarion, but they were both valid targets. If he'd have fired up Mortarion, he would have had just as much chance of killing it, but would have removed a 490-point model instead of a 100-and-something point model, 180-point model.
Lesson learned.
Yeah, so when you're firing your Alpha Strike, really think about what your target is, so you're removing the highest points cost. When I'm playing the game, I keep a mental tally of how many points I've got left on the board and what I'm shooting. So my number one target, and this is talking about target priority now, is I want to remove things that can effectively kill my army. So if I'm playing an army that's all toughness 7 or 8 or higher, which is a common army I'll play, so there's no low toughness on the board, what I'm doing is I'm removing their ability to shoot me with weaker firepower. So their rapid fire guns, las guns, and everything don't really do anything. But I'll make sure that my initial targets are all things that do a lot of high strength so that their army is just ineffective and everything's bouncing off me for the rest of the game. Likewise, in reverse, if I'm playing a Horde army, I'll target things that do multiple shots and I'll let them have their las cannons. One of my favorite games was I had an army of Poxwalkers and my opponent had a bunch of Predators with las cannons, and I just killed everything that does mass firepower. He killed some of my stuff, and then I just sat on objectives for the rest of the game, and he was shooting like 4 las cannons at a time. It's like, oh no, a Poxwalker died. Yeah. Like, there was really, 4 shots, 3 las cannon hits, 2 Poxwalkers are dead. Cool, go again. It was just ridiculous. So really think about removing their effectiveness, which isn't always killing the biggest, shiniest thing. And then the next target is the highest points cost. Remove the points that they've got to play. And then also think about removing aura buffs, because aura buffs, like we explained in an earlier video, maximize the output of their points. So we want to reduce that. So these are some key things that you want to think about when you're designing your Alpha Strike. Now, what's cool about this is every army has an Alpha Strike, and there are a lot of units that can do it. You don't need to listen to the internet being like, this is the best unit. There are so many different armies that have different ways of doing an Alpha Strike. You just need to think about what kind of Alpha Strike you want. Now, there are close combat Alpha Strikes. So for example, with Blood Angels, if you take Death Company with jump packs, you can pretty much get a first turn charge because they've got their Forlorn Fury, which enables them to get a 12-inch move at the start of the game. Follow that with a 12-inch jump, and now you've moved 24 inches and you can charge with a bunch of Thunderhammers. That would be an Alpha Strike in close combat. Also, things like Outriders for White Scars. They can move, advance, and charge, and their movement is so high, their advance is automatic at 6 inches, so they're going to move 20 inches. About 20 inches, I think is what it is, 14 plus 6. Yep. And that 20 inches, they're probably going to make their charge. So you can get a bunch of close combat Alpha Strikes, but it doesn't have to be close combat. It doesn't have to be shooting. You can have both. You could have, a White Scar army that has a bunch of Devastators in drop pods with multi-melters that arrive via drop pod and blast with multi-melters. This is one of my armies, by the way. And a bunch of Outriders that then move, advance, and charge. I've now tied up a bunch of their armies in close combat and done an Alpha Strike in close combat. I've shot some stuff off with multi-melters, and I've got my Alpha Strike off there. And it's 2 new Alpha Strikes that not everyone's using. It's like a different way of doing it. You don't have to just buy the Eradicators because everyone's buying Eradicators, right? So what's cool about this is you can really choose your army. I'll give you another one that's really good, a Chaos one that no one's using right now, which is the Chosen. I bet you've probably not even looked at the Chosen, yeah? See, I love this. So Chosen are the special weapons specialists of Chaos. And you can take a squad of 5 Chosen and you can put 5 Melter Guns in that squad. You can take 2 squads of 5 Chosen, giving you 10 dudes with Melter Guns, put them in a Dreadclaw, which is the Chaos drop pod, and you can drop them and blast with 10 melter guns on the first turn of the game. And that is a great way of giving somebody an alpha strike at 10 melter guns to the face on the first turn, and you just basically stick your middle finger up at the Space Marines and their Eradicators. Yeah, and what's cool about this, and this builds nicely to the next video, is that gives you durability. See, because if my opponent has Eradicators, you can't shoot my Chosen in the Dreadclaw on turn 1 because it isn't on the board.
Yeah.
But in my turn 1, if I go second, I'd put that Dreadclaw within 9 inches away from your Eradicators and unload on the Eradicators with 10 Chosen melter guns, and your Eradicators are off the board.
Oh my God.
And that's because I effectively used durability. And we're going to talk about that in the very next video. So stay tuned and watch out as we talk about the second pillar of army design, which is durability.